Hi, I have this tendency to read several books simultaneously, and one of those currently is Tender is the Flesh. It reminds me of two other books which have similar subject matter but they aren't the same. The Vegetarian by Han Kang, which I loved. The second book, which is one of my favorite books ever, is My Year of Meats by Ruth Ozeki, and that was a gorgeous piece of literature. What I really like about My Year of Meats is that you get different perspectives about people in the meat industry. So basically, there's one cinematographer. She makes documentaries and she goes across the US interviewing different families who have different lifestyle choices. And the first couple that she or first family that she interviews is a vegan family, but the Japanese company that she's working for, they're trying to promote beef in Japan, and they're just like, what are you doing? Our viewers are not going to be interested in this. And I don't know, just she gets into this whole process of how meat is processed all over the world, and the the livelihoods that depend on it, but how it affects them if they don't work in the meat industry. And it's just a very, very nice book. And like Ruta Zeki's writing is just simply wonderful. And that book has stayed with me. I think I read it 4 years ago, and it's like still stayed with me. It really meant something. It was great. And now that I'm reading Tender is the Flesh, where we're talking about if everyone was eating human meat, would you? And it's a kind of dystopian world where a virus has affected all the animals that we feed on, and the only source left is human meat. So it's not like we're eating cadavers or something, but it's actually human meat cultivated to be processed as food for other humans. So who is deemed worthy of this? Not worthy, I wouldn't say worthy, but who's deemed fit to live and fit to be killed, it's it's a very nice dynamic. I'm only 15% through it, but I'm really enjoying it. It's a little disturbing, and it's really funny. I started reading this when my sister and I were on vacation. She said people read fun books on vacation. This is not a vacation book, but I don't know. I was just in a hammock. I was just reading this, and I wanted to continue reading it. It just sucks you into the world. It's very dark. It's the the thought process of this book reminds me a little bit of The Handmaid's Tale. And in The Handmaid's Tale, basically only fertile women were taken, and then, like, they were taken in by the organization and then sold to families who couldn't reproduce themselves. This gives me a very similar dystopian world, but it's very real. Like, it's not dystopian so far in the future that it's unfathomable. This seems like a very real issue, and I don't know, the way that it has been treated so far, it makes you interested to read this. And it's very fascinating to me as well, because anyone who knows me knows my relationship with meat is very tricky. And it I was a vegan for 4 years, and then I had some health issues, and I started eating meat, and I wanted to be pescatarian, but I thought that was worse because I love diving and I love fish. I have pet fish, so I said no, I'll just stick to chicken and eggs. But then I also read about why chickens and like hens keep reproducing eggs, even though like it's a completely harmless process. Regardless of us eating eggs, poultry animals will lay eggs, but that's only to like complete their clutch. So the minute you take eggs out of their nest, they feel like they have to lay more to complete their clutch, and that made me really sad. So I just have this very complicated relationship with meat, and I'm interested to read more about it. I just remembered another really nice thing about My Year of Meats she's trying to cover footage and like cover stories across the world about how the meat industry affects others, but her mom personally was eating the kind of meat and had the and ingested like pesticides or whatever the hormones that were injected in the animals at the time, that personally affects her own fertility, and she doesn't want kids. But the fact that she has come to recognize this, that's life changing. It's I would urge everyone to read this book. It Some parts are very bleh, but some parts they just hit you, and you try to think about the repercussions of this entire industry. And it's not like a vegan propaganda, but it really talks about like, is it ethical, how is it ethical, how do we make it ethical, and can it ever be ethical? Yeah, it's very nice. Hi. I finished reading Tenders the Flesh this morning, and it's such a bleak, dark book, extremely gory and disturbing. But I think it's meant to make you feel that way, because the only way humans feel empathy is if we humanize things. And I don't know if the author was trying to do this, but at the end of it, the conclusion that you come to is, regardless of what happens, this is human nature, and we're going to use things for our benefit. So when it can't be animals around us or the environment, we will move on to other humans. And there's actually this whole subplot through the book which talks about this is actually a government propaganda to, you know, curb overpopulation, and we don't know if it's true. It's never addressed. I liked some parts of it, but overall, I feel like the book could have tried to expand on the human condition, but it didn't do that to the fullest extent. And it's really eerie and weird how I mentioned The Handmaid's Tale when I initially started reading it. And slight spoiler, but like towards the end, that's exactly what happens. I don't want to say I like this book because it's just so depressing in a way where it doesn't make you feel good about anything. Like, it's not cathartic in any sense. It's just disturbing for the sake of it, but that's what it's trying to do, because you're trying to feel empathy for these human beings or heads which are reared to be eaten, but you also feel empathy for our main character who's actually had like a really shit life, and he feels nothing but despair. He lost his kid, and his wife is estranged because she is unable to overcome that. But what's really crazy is the thing that brings them together is using another human being as a rearing machine to create another baby that they take for themselves and then snatch from the head that gave birth to it. I did not see that coming. I liked that because there's no happiness in this book. There's no sense of the world will change and it will get better. And I liked the book. I feel like they could have done more, but it's really weird that I made that Handmaid's Tale reference, and that's exactly what happens. Like, that's an insane coincidence. But yeah, I think I'd give this book like 3.5 stars. I did like it, but I didn't like it that much. It was just gory and disturbing, and it's not for someone who gets queasy reading details. And it's a very harrowing book because it talks about like the brutality against human beings used as objects, and there's like explicit mention of SA. It's it's not a nice book to read, but and also it was surprising for me that the meat, while he is the manager of a meat processing company or a meat selling company, he hates the fact that he has to do this, and he's only doing this because he's paying for extremely good health care for his father, who doesn't even recognize him. He has a really weird relationship with his sister, and he doesn't like her. She's part of the brainwashed people, so to say. And while you're rooting for our main character because you think he's different, at the end he's not so different. And I think that's the only saving grace of this book, because you think the main character that you're rooting for is, he all throughout he's different from the people you meet. There are people who find pleasure in seeing others get killed, right, as the meat is being processed. And you, throughout the book, you think that he's different because you're seeing things from his perspective. This disgusts him, this feels appalling. He doesn't want to be in this society where this is legalized, right? And while he may not have participated in this whole ordeal in the way that he would have expected, or you as a reader would have expected, he still does use other humans as objects to get what he wants. And I think that's the true essence of the human condition that the author is trying to get at. Like, you think you're different, but you'll do what's best for you and use whatever you want to get what you want. Hi, I started reading this new book that's been on my TBR for a really long time, called Swimming in the Dark. And I'm 15% through it, relatively still in the early stages. But it has such vivid imagery, and it feels like each word has been thoughtfully used. Nothing feels unnecessary, but like it's so descriptive and beautiful. And it's about, I think it's a coming of age love story between two men who are finding it difficult to come to terms with their sexuality. Hi, I just finished reading Swimming in the Dark last night. I was up till 1 a.m. and I thoroughly enjoyed reading this book. It's really sad in a way where they love each other. It's not like their love is forbidden, other than the fact that they're gay. That's what's forbidden about it. But the worst part is that society keeps them apart, and the thing that like keeps pushing them apart from each other is their difference in socio-political ideologies. And that's what's such an interesting part of this book. The political climate that they're in and their own ideologies worm their way into every situation that they come up against. And it's so interesting because it just talks about how your upbringing changes the way you look at the world. So this is set in 1980s Poland against the decline of communism. And uh, Ludwig, I think that's our main character, he is of the opinion that this is not the kind of world I want to live in. I feel trapped here. What kind of a world, like, what kind of a country is this where you say that there's justice and freedom, but at every turn, everything you do is questioned. We all live in houses that look the same. We're curbed from doing anything we like, and the prices are skyrocketing. We can't afford meat, but yet you are saying communism is good for our country. But when he goes to like the church camp, he meets Janos over there, and I think that's how you say it. And when they start, when it goes beyond the physical, and they start to talk about what everything really means to them, Janusz says, if it weren't for communism, I wouldn't have this opportunity to be in the camp over here. Do you think I could like have the opportunity to like apply for jobs? I'm the first person to go to college. Do you see how it's good for me? This is the same person who will make use of contacts to get ahead for their own good, but it's like for their overall good. But our main character is totally against that, right? So they're constantly like butting heads when it comes to like how to navigate these social situations, and it's handled so well because yeah, love isn't enough, but it delves into so much. It's about when Polish Jews were sent to Israel, he lost one of his closest friends, and that was his first reckoning with the world isn't fair. And he saw this as a kid, right? And it's like he'll never know what happened to his friend. Is he dead? Is he alive? Or is he like doing well in Israel? What he knows is that he was suddenly taken away from his home. And yeah, it's like a lot of it comes under like social policing, and some parts of this were really nice because you know that they recognize their differences and they're still trying to find ways to make this happen for them, but they know it's not possible. And I love the references to Giovanni's Room in it. I think I want to read it. I mean, James Baldwin has been on my list. I want to read If Beale Street Could Talk. I've heard it's really good. I think there's a movie on it which is also really good. But there are constant references to Giovanni's Room and how he feels so connected to that book, and that book actually connects the two of them because through this is how they convey that no, we're different from the others in this camp, and there's this connection that's unsaid but they feel it. I like it because there's no false sense of hope, there's no unnecessary we have to make this unnecessarily sad or we have to force a happy ending. It's that kind of a book which just talks about the truth as it is. Some things are just left unsaid, they're unfinished. Yeah, marvelous, precise, and poignant. I think that's a very, very good description of this book. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It feels like a very raw account of someone's diary interspersed with dialogues. And I think that's a format I really enjoyed because you truly grasp what the main character's feeling, trying to say, and his interactions with the world. Hi, I just finished reading Phantoms in the Brain, and this was a great book. It's definitely a book that you need to be in the right mind space for because it's not fiction, it's heavily based on experiments and like the findings of V.S. Ramachandran after he goes through, multiple rounds of experiments and studies on people. It's such a good book though. Like the first half was definitely more interesting, but what I do like is how he talks about there's a very funny part where he talks about everyone hating on Freud is pretty common these days, but there are some things that he did that actually define psychology in a very good way for us. And that was about how our brain perceives things that are happening and then it actively tries to deny, confabulate, or resist those notions and present whatever is deemed normal as the notion that is supposed to be felt. Yeah, so like suppose someone's paralyzed and they're told to lift a table. They will either not lift it and say that they did lift it because they're in complete denial, or they will try to lift it and then make up an excuse saying, oh, my arm's really tired because of the poking and prodding. So they'll confabulate it. So it's very interesting about how your mind is just playing tricks on you when there is an objective truth and you know that this is true. The person had a stroke and the left side is paralyzed. But they will still come up with excuses which their brain thinks is absolutely true. It's not like they're making up lies. To them, it's their own truth, it's absolute truth. So that's very interesting. Another really whack and cool thing about this book that I found out is the Pensfield map. And I think everyone should read up about it. It talks about why certain things feel the way they do. Like everyone likes to talk about how Freud was weird because um he had like an Oedipus complex and he had something to do with feet. But like the Pensfield map also shows how the feet are and where like the phallic organs are. It's a very, very interesting concept, and it's like a homunculus diagram basically, and it actually maps which part of the body receives like neurons when stimulated in the brain. And that's how the entire map is done. And I think it was created to be used during brain surgery because you're awake during brain surgery, so you know which part of the brain you're in. It's very interesting. If you find that cool, you should definitely read up on the Pensfield map. But yeah, this was a very nice read. Towards the second half of it, I think because I read so many other things in the middle, I lost the link. But yeah, I liked the book a lot. It was great. Yeah, that's it.
Hi, it's July 1st, which means it's officially cancer season. And I found the perfect name that encapsulates me. But in other news, I hate doom scrolling, as does everyone else. But sometimes you find just the most beautiful gems online. And that inspired me to download Nothing Personal by James Baldwin. And this was the excerpt I read. It was just so beautiful. It's from his essay called Nothing Personal. And the part that I saw online, like the snippet I saw online, was if your lover lives in Hong Kong and cannot get to Chicago, it will be necessary for you to go to Hong Kong. Perhaps you'll spend your life there and never see Chicago again. And you will, I assure you, as long as space and time divide you from anyone you love, discover a great deal about shipping routes, airlines, earthquake, famine, disease, and war. And you will always know what time it is in Hong Kong, for you love someone who lives there. And love will simply have no choice but to go into battle with space and time and furthermore to win. That's so beautiful. Yeah, so I'm very excited to read Nothing Personal. You know, I just finished the essay Nothing Personal, and if I could highlight each and every line, I would.
Sometimes I believe that I have this inability to see wrong or critique any piece of art that I have enjoyed, like a lot of movies and books. And a lot of my college friends used to make fun of me because they take my recommendations seriously, and then they'd go watch it and say, "Hey Natasha, this C drama that you recommended, was it as great as you thought it was?" So I don't know if it's my inability to look past flaws in things that I like, or I genuinely try to find things that I like in the things I consume. Anyway, this essay was beautiful, and in addition to the part that I read online, I saw some more things which I really loved it and I wanted to highlight. In any case, wherever love is found, it unfailingly makes itself felt in the individual, the personal authority of the individual. Judged by this standard, we are a loveless nation. The best that can be said is that some of us are struggling, and what we are struggling against is that death in the heart which leads not only to the shedding of blood, but which reduces human beings to corpses while they live. What? And I know he wrote this at a time where America as a country was like struggling to get past um, their violent history and what it was to be a black man living in America at the time, right? Like this book also mentions his experiences. But some things are just so applicable to everyone. It's so profound. Two other things that I highlighted.
Yeah, I really like this part because it talks about like the things you think of at 4 a.m. It's such a dark time to be awake, and so many things go through your mind. But this is like the later part of it, and it says, for perhaps between now and that last day, something wonderful will happen. A miracle of coherence and release. And the miracle on which one's unsteady attention is focused is always the same, however it may be stated or however it may remain unstated.
Is it?
Wow, it's just so complex about how as individuals we feel things, but it's like it's our duty to like move past that and take the day as it comes. It's just this essay is so short, it's so beautiful, everyone should read it. Like it's just gorgeous. And the last thing, which was right after the Hong Kong and Chicago passage that I saw, this really concluded it beautifully for me. And it starts with, I have slept on rooftops and in basements and subways, and have been cold and hungry all my life. Have felt that no fire would ever warm me, and no arms would ever hold me. Through all that terror and in all that helplessness, a living soul lived and refused to die. We really emptied oceans with a homemade spoon and tore down mountains with our hands. And if love was in Hong Kong, we learned how to swim.
What? Just
Oh my god. Yeah, I really do have to read everything else written by James Baldwin. I'm like, yeah, I'm floored. Anyway, I think I read quite a bit this month. It's been a good distraction from everything else happening in life. But yeah, I would love your recommendations if anyone has any. And I take them very seriously. In fact, my friend's boyfriend recommended Blood Meridian. And I just ordered it and it arrived. So I'm excited to read this.
I know.
Yeah. Thank you for watching. Bye.